Well, that's wrong.
Those are not
Let me tell you why it's wrong.
Maybe you think that they're wrong.
Well,
but that's
I am,
what
and I'm
the
going to tell you why
American
it's wrong.
people
Because
think.
after 2015,
they don't
we
agree
codified
with
an
you.
agreement in which the Iranian people, the Iranian government was allowed to keep its high uranium enriching centrifuges, its uranium bomb making equipment.
No,
and it would,
they
and
were
it was
not.
true.
That is not true.
No, it is not.
That's why when you brought up the when you brought up the polls, I was like, yeah, it sounds okay. But
I think it just displays a remarkable lack of faith in the American people that they wouldn't support a project to liberate Iran and extirpate this 50-year threat and ensure that the hostage
it's not guesswork, no.
the hostage crisis that we are experiencing now in the Strait of Hormuz.
That's not America first.
There's a growing trend right now where certain Republican and MAGA figures are trying to align themselves with people who have been against the Iran war from day one, trying to position themselves on the right side of public opinion as this thing drags on. And in this clip, we see exactly that play out. A MAGA-aligned guest spends most of the segment sounding reasonable, agreeing that voters are unhappy, agreeing the economy is hurting people. But then towards the end, he just cannot help himself. And he tries to make the case that the American people actually want this war to continue. Watch this, and I'll give you my full thoughts on the other side.
Hi, everyone. I'm Abby Phillip. As the pressure is mounting on Donald Trump, he claims it doesn't faze him.
I'm not frustrated. I don't get frustrated.
But the problem is that this week showed that he's clearly not telling the truth, or at least not quite telling the truth. Sources said that he's furious that new strikes against Iran weren't seen as powerful enough. He also made a pretty far-fetched claim when he was complaining about the media coverage of the war.
Iran is very good at publicity, but they're not good at fighting. But I took a look, and I must tell you, they can't believe the press they're getting. They can't even believe it. Yeah. And they told me, they said it's amazing how well we're doing in the papers.
On top of the war, he gave into pressure and named a new pick to lead the nation's intelligence agencies. That's after backlash over his unexpectedly inexperienced selection. He called California's elections rigged when Spencer Pratt lost a mayoral race, but apparently believed them when his gubernatorial candidate advanced. He blamed his staff for making him endorse a candidate who lost his primary this week. And many times when Trump gets frustrated, he denies reality, like claiming that he wasn't booed at Madison Square Garden this week, or this comment about inflation hitting a 3-year high.
Are you concerned, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning? Could that be a
No, I love it.
for
The numbers were
Republicans
great.
to
You know what I really love? I love the inflation. Oh, when the war is over,
Yes.
it's coming down.
I know you can't.
It's going to come down like a rock.
But despite playing it cool, one of the Republicans who lost his primary after a Trump snub says that he and others have more freedom now, and Trump's in for a bumpy ride for the next few months and perhaps the next 2 years. I think a lot of things are happening this week, but they all kind of converge on one thing, which is that a lot of the force of will that Trump puts behind everything that he does in the presidency has not been enough to do two things. One, resolve this war in Iran fully, and two, release some of this economic anxiety that voters have had and their unhappiness with how he's handled the economy. And this is all happening, and the midterms are just a few months away now.
Well, I think Trump and the Republican Party are in for a rude awakening. Most times you have an incumbent president, and during the midterm, you usually see some fall off. I mean, that's the way that history goes. But I think now you're starting to see Trump's imprint on the party be detrimental to their chances for success in November, because everybody recognizes when Trump endorses someone in a Republican primary, those individuals win. The problem is over the next 6 months, you kind of have to shake that off, because voters right now, they're not in favor of higher inflation. They're not in favor of a war in Iran. They're not in favor of higher gas prices. They elected Donald Trump with all of his vulgarity, with all of his tweets, with all of his behavior, with all of the things that drive me up a wall. They said they were going to vote for him again because he's going to lower the cost of living. What has Donald Trump not done? Lower the cost of living. They elected him because they said we're going to put America first. What are they not seeing? America first. And so there are very tangible things, ideals, politics, policies from a 50,000-foot view that we don't even have to get in the weeds of policy to see where Donald Trump has not even met the level of expectation of the voting base that put him back in the office.
No.
Man, that was good.
Yeah.
Lord.
You left Noah like a little speechless. Go ahead, Noah.
No, I think the president, if he's frustrated with the degree to which people reacted to his strikes and said, well, this isn't big enough, he only has himself to blame. We were here when that happened. He called them off mid-sortie. Under the expectation, apparently, that the Iranians were coming closer to a deal with him. And the deal is subject to interpretation. What we're getting from the White House and what we're getting from Tansim, for example, or here, the Iranian news agencies, diametrically opposed. There's no way to reconcile those two things. So we don't even know what's coming. I would suspect that the president believes, and correctly believes, that the American people will be unforgiving if he emerges from this war with anything less than a realistic claim to success, to efficacy.
Can I ask you to respond to this and I just want you to respond. This is Don Bacon. He said this on Thursday, and this is how he sees where we are in the war.
Iran needs to come to us wanting a deal. Right now, we're going to them, and they are abusing the president in these negotiations, if you ask me.
You think they're winning?
Because they think he wants it more than they do. We got to make the Iranians want a deal. And right now, they think they can. They think they have the advantage over President Trump.
I just wonder, based on what you were just saying, I mean, do you think that's an accurate interpretation of where we are?
I don't think it's an inaccurate interpretation. I'm too removed from the process to know what and I don't suspect Congressman Bacon is who I really respect. I don't suspect he's close enough to the process either to know precisely what the Iranians are thinking. Look, the blockade is having a significant effect on behavior of the Iranians. We don't even have to be in the room to know that Iranian behavior is shifting as a result of the economic complications that they're facing, the degree to which the IRGC can't pay its subordinates, etc. That's pressure that should continue. I don't see how the president gets what he wants in the absence of that pressure, combined with kinetic force designed to open up the strait. Look, we've done it before. We did it in the 1980s. I'm not sure why this president is reluctant to go back to high-tempo combat operations. Perhaps it's because our exquisite defensive interceptors are too short to guarantee the safety of the Gulf. Perhaps the Gulf allies are getting squeamish. Perhaps political concerns on the domestic front are altering his calculation. Irrespective, the president is coming out of this looking weaker.
It's not helpful that he keeps telling Americans that the war is over and then they keep bombing. Well, I mean, that's not helpful.
It's not only that, but all of this is self-inflicted. I mean, if you look back at what happened a year ago, whenever he put forward tariffs and he told the American people that they would just have to deal with a little bit of pain for long-term gain. That didn't end up happening. Then fast forward to this war, again, self-inflicted. So gas prices, all of these things. The economy was actually heading in a pretty good direction. President Trump inherited an economy, and at the start of his presidency, it was going in the right direction. All of the things that he has done, he's gotten in the way of the American people prospering, and the American people are starting to see that, and now they don't really believe him anymore every time that he says, listen, just bear with me for a little bit. And so I think that if you're looking at this week in totality, everything is because Donald Trump caused it as we're heading into the midterm elections.
Yeah, and I also think he's just like unabashedly being like, I don't care.
That's right.
I mean, almost 50% of Americans, they can't afford the essentials, like diapers, you know what I mean, food, shoes for their kids. And he has said over and over again, basically, like, I'm going to put billions into bombs and pennies for moms. And he's going to pay the price of that. Like, the math is not mathing for American families. You can't hide behind that. It's just facts.
I mean, that chart, look at this chart, the inflation chart. Producer price index and the consumer price index, both up sharply for the month of May. I mean, that's directly a result of the war. Inflation is now officially eating up wage increases.
Yeah.
And so it's just not a good fact pattern when you run on bringing prices down and then prices spike.
Yeah, and that's not the only consideration. Americans are not in favor of Iran getting a nuclear weapon. They don't like the Iranian regime. They don't want to see it continue to exist. I kind of wish that he'd approached the American people and said, listen, you're going to have to bear a little bit of a burden in your pockets for a while so we can extirpate this.
But they also just don't like this war. I mean, they agree with you on those two things, but they don't like the fact of this war, and they don't like how it's been.
The legislative way to do that would have been for Donald Trump to actually go to the United States Congress and make his case there and build a coalition to actually authorize war powers to go and do this. The problem with what you're saying is that although we all around this table agree that Iran does not need to have a nuclear weapon, and I would venture to say the overwhelming majority of Americans actually would agree with that, the way that we went about it from the very beginning poses a problem. So now this happened. You have Marco Rubio, who articulated 2 weeks ago this litany of successes that they've had. One of the things that Marco Rubio did not articulate is actually destroying their nuclear program or making them further away from a nuclear weapon than they were when they destroyed the JCPOA. So what I'm simply saying is, if Donald Trump, he's put himself in this box, if Donald Trump ends this war and the nuclear program in Iran is not destroyed, not just disrupted, but destroyed, this is not a success. And that is a hell of a bar that he set for himself.
And you're going to start to see Republicans, we're already seeing this, Tom Tillis, Cornyn, Cassidy, McConnell to some extent, basically saying it's time to cut bait.
Right.
Because we have a midterm coming up, and this guy in the White House is doing what's good for him, but not what's good for the rest of the
And also, I think if you ask the American people, do you want to get rid of nuclear weapons in Iran, or do you want child care? I promise you they're going to pick child care.
But you can't
because
deliver child care. Hang on one second.
Excuse me, you can deliver
you
child care.
can.
You absolutely can. You've
No,
had
the federal
Vermont
government
do
can
it.
promise you child care. It can take your money out of your pocket. It's not going to give you child care. Private providers give you child care.
That's not
It can
true.
promise to pay.
That's actually not true.
That is actually how
That
it
is-
works. The federal
no.
government disperses money that extracts from your pocket. We can overread the poll numbers, which say that the Iranian war is unpopular. But if you ask in those very same polls, you ask what the American people want. These are 80-20 propositions. The Iranian government should not have a nuclear weapon.
But
the Iranian regime should collapse.
I think you are overreading those polls, because it is definitely possible for Americans to say we don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and to also say we don't think that the best way to make that happen is war.
Well, that's wrong.
Those are not
And let me tell you why it's wrong.
Maybe you think that they're wrong.
Well,
but that's
I am,
what
and
the
I'm going to tell you why it's wrong.
American
Because after 2015,
they don't
we
agree with
codified
you.
an agreement in which the Iranian government was allowed to keep its high uranium enriching centrifuges, its uranium bomb making equipment.
No,
and it would,
they
and
were
it was
not.
true. And after,
That is not true.
No, it is not
No,
true.
you asked me when the federal
The
It is not
centrifuges
true
were
that-
mothballed. Yes, it is.
that the
How did they start up this?
JCPOA
Yes, it is. How did they start up the
allowed
highly
Iran to
enriched?
keep their
How did they?
their bomb-making capabilities? That is not
Abby,
true.
that's inaccurate.
No.
The JCPOA mothballed centrifuges. It did not dismantle
Yeah,
them.
but
That's
you
why
just-
they started
okay.
enriching uranium immediately after the JCPOA collapsed. And if you
Listen.
think that there wasn't going to be a hostage crisis
All
over
right.
the nuclear weapons
we don't
program,
have time to get into all the details of the JCPOA.
The details matter here, 'cause you're saying they're wrong when that's inaccurate.
It does matter, because I do think that your assertion that the JCPOA basically just left unsaid whether or not they could have a nuclear weapon is not
It didn't
true.
leave unsaid.
And
It
on
said
top of
actually that you could engage in
and
nuclear
on-
research when it sunset, which would have been sanctioning a
and
bomb
on top
program.
of that, the Trump administration effectively made that sunset immediate when they pulled out of the deal and did not replace it with anything. So what it did is it unshackled Iran from any sort of prohibitions or oversight over what they were doing, and then they immediately started
Self-inspections.
enriching
But,
to a level that is
But, I mean,
close
can we go
bomb
back to just
grade.
a simple question?
So
Just one-
I'm not saying that the JCPOA was good or perfect. I'm just saying that the absence of any sort of constraints is the main thing that allowed Iran
Can
to
we just get back to like a
proceed to
very
nuclear
simple
weapon.
question that I would ask?
Okay, last thing.
That I would ask
We
a
have to
voter,
go.
and I would ask you. I would simply say, the only way that you can destroy Iran's nuclear program is to put boots on the ground, right? Absent Iran doing it themselves, which takes a whole hell of a lot of belief in Iranians and their government, and nobody around this table actually believes that they're honest brokers. Do you think the American public is willing to risk the lives of our men and women with boots on the ground when we have surging cost of electricity, gas, fertilizer, etc.? And that's why when you brought up the polls, I was like, yeah, it sounds okay. But
I think it just displays a remarkable lack of faith in the American people that they wouldn't support a project to liberate Iran and extirpate this 50-year threat and
It's not
ensure that
guesswork.
the hostage. Yes,
It's
I'm
not
answering.
guesswork, no.
The hostage crisis that we are experiencing now in the Strait of Hormuz.
That's not America first.
And they have said,
we were America first.
Guys, it's not.
No,
we don't have to
we're
guess
clearly
on
America
this.
last.
We don't have to guess on this.
I'm not the one underestimating
There is
the
reason.
American
American
people's
public has
desire
been
to
asked
liberate
about
the
this, and
American
they have
Iranian
said
people
a
know the American
resounding
people's
as though it's a
desire.
zero-sum
So
game.
it's not a guess. whether or not they support it. They don't.
You should go to Iowa. The voters in
right.
Iowa will tell you that
Next
they do
for
not agree
us,
with it.
Hunter Biden takes the gloves.
This is exactly the pattern I keep pointing out, and this clip is one of the clearest examples of it yet. For most of that segment, the panel was actually finding common ground. Everyone agreed Trump inherited an economy heading in the right direction. Everyone agreed the war is self-inflicted. Everyone agreed inflation is eating into wages, that almost half of Americans can't afford diapers and groceries, and that Trump promised to bring costs down and instead made them worse. Even the MAGA-aligned voice on the panel was nodding along to most of this, but then it got to the actual core question. If you ask the American people directly whether they support this war, what do they say? And the polling is not ambiguous. People do not support it. And instead of accepting that, instead of saying America first means listening to what Americans actually want, the response was essentially that the polling must be wrong, that Americans secretly do support military action against Iran. They just don't realize it yet. That's not America first. That is the exact opposite of America first. That is telling the American people they don't actually know what's good for them, while the people making that argument would never send their own children to fight in the war they're defending. And let's talk about the JCPOA argument, because this is where the entire conservative justification falls apart under any real scrutiny. The claim was that the 2015 deal somehow left Iran's nuclear program intact, and that's why we're here. But that's not what happened. The JCPOA mothballed Iran's centrifuges under an international inspections regime. It did not leave them free to enrich uranium. What actually happened is that the Trump administration walked away from that. Deal during the first term removed the restrictions and the oversight, and Iran immediately started enriching again with no inspections and no constraints. The deal worked. Ask any independent analysis, ask any AI to run the actual data, and it comes back the same way. The infrastructure that kept Iran's nuclear ambitions in check was torn up not because it was failing, but because Donald Trump didn't want anything with Barack Obama's name attached to it. That's it. That's the entire reason we are where we are today. Ego pride, nothing else. And now, having torn up the one framework that was actually working, this administration set an impossibly high bar for itself. Marco Rubio listed off a series of so-called successes a couple weeks ago, and notably absent from that list was any claim that Iran's nuclear program had actually been destroyed. Disrupted, maybe. Destroyed. No. So if this war ends and Iran's nuclear capability isn't fully eliminated, by Trump's own framing, this is a failure. He boxed himself into that outcome. Meanwhile, you have Republican senators like Tillis, Cornyn, Cassidy, and even McConnell to some degree starting to quietly distance themselves because the midterms are coming and they know exactly how this is going to play with voters. You have a president who told Americans the war was over while bombs were still falling. You have inflation numbers spiking directly as a result of this conflict, eating into the wage gains people actually need. And you have a president who, when asked directly about record inflation, said he loves it because it means the war must be ending soon. That's not strategy. That's someone improvising explanations in real time because the actual plan isn't working. The bottom line is this. Americans can hold two thoughts at once. They don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and they also don't believe the way this administration has gone about handling it is the right approach. Those two positions are not in conflict, no matter how badly certain panelists want to pretend otherwise. And if this administration genuinely believed in America first, the answer to whether the public supports this war would have been an honest no. Instead, we got someone arguing the polls don't mean what they clearly say, because admitting the truth would mean admitting this entire approach has failed the people it was supposedly meant to protect. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification. I'll see you in the next one.